If you've already summarized the entire handout on the Ba'al Shem Tov's biography, which I didn't intend for you to do all on the first day, then you won't have much to write down until later in this video, because the first part of the video is going to be about continuing on in that handout from yesterday, and we're up to page 3 out of 10 on the bottom, where it says that Eliyahu Navi appeared to Ba'al Shem Tov on his 16th birthday and described to him the great effect the prayers of simple folk had in heaven. Their pure intent and unwavering faith with which they uttered the words of prayer, Eliyahu explained, resonated in the higher worlds more than the scholarly achievements of great sages, which of course is the basis of Chassidus and the flute story we discussed on the first day about the Ba'al Shem Tov. Continuing on to the next section, Yisrael was Ein Tzaddik. So then it discusses the Ba'al Shem Tov's first wife, about whom we know nothing about Ba'al Shem Tov's second wife and family, who we know much more about. And as you see a picture of the Ba'al Shem Tov's own sitter. They had 2 children. We're up now page 5 of the handout. And discusses there where what Rabbi Yisrael did. He spent most of his time in the secluded study and meditation. They supported themselves by mining clay and lime, which Chana then sold, his wife sold. And the breathtaking scenery and relative freedom from demands of everyday life allowed Yisrael to concentrate on his studies and the service of God. He was a little Ba'al Shem will later remember the 7 years in the Carpathian Mountains as one of the most enjoyable periods of his life. The next paragraph tells us that on the Ba'al Shem Tov's 26th birthday, the ancient Navi, Achia Shiloni, who taught Torah to Eliyahu HaNavi some 2,500 years later, appeared to the Ba'al Shem Tov and taught him the secrets of the Torah. Obviously, this is a very powerful tradition in Chassidus, which cannot be verified by us either way, but that was in fact, from the Chassidic point of view, where Rabbi Yisrael was, so to speak, anointed by a Navi to be somebody who continues in his ways in this generation, in the 1700s. He also was a Talmud of and we're going to see in a minute, of another great Nistar, a very mysterious figure named Reb Adam Ba'al Shem, who was a leader of a secret society of mystics, which Rabbi Yisrael became a part. The end of page 5, we see Rabbi Yisrael became a Ba'al Shem, meaning a healer who was able to heal people by both his knowledge of remedies and kameus, amulets, which you cause controversy much later, a few years later, between Yonis and Eifshitz and Rabbi Yaakov Emden. And at this point, Rabbi Yisrael was considered Ba'al Shem, so whatever kameus he wrote evidently had a very positive reputation, and certainly his use of the Shem Hashem was such. And besides that, he had tried to inculcate within the people who he healed also the spirit of simcha, which is a basic premise of Chassidic avodas Hashem, to do everything with simcha. At his at the 36th birthday, on page 6, after 6 years of intense, unyielding pressure from his long-time mentors, Rabbi Adam Ba'al Shem, and Achia Shlomo to publicly reveal his greatness, the Besht, that's short for Ba'al Shem Tov, began preaching openly. And this ushered in a new era in Jewish thought. In the Besht's view, the simple blessing of an unlettered Jew was associated as advanced Torah study. Purity of intent was valued over dry achievement. Joy and humility were to be admired, and even the simplest peasant could serve God through passionate prayer. Obviously, from the point of view of the what were going to become the Misnagdim, these were fighting words. So, because if you look at things from the perspective of Shleimus, again, the experience of Dveikus is one which passes, at least for most people. The experience of Shleimus is one which is an ongoing attempt to accomplish the greatness which one is capable of accomplishing, each person according to their potential. The Misnagdic is very often skeptical of the Chassid's assertion of Dveikus. He questions whether it's real or just deluding him, is Chassid deluding himself. the Chassid will say, okay, maybe I'm deluding myself, but just like you say, from doing things not for the right reasons, one comes to do things for the right reasons, so too from my dvekus, which is pretend I might come, and hopefully will come, to dvekus, which is real. And here I want to give a very interesting distinction between Chassidus and Misnagdus, which is not completely true, but is largely and substantially true in terms of singing. In a Chassidic song, there usually there are no words. It's usually just a nigun. Overwhelmingly, their nigunim do not have words. By Misnagdim, overwhelmingly, there are songs that have words. There are very few nigunim without words, and usually those are borrowed from the Chassidim. Why do you think that is? It's a good question, right? My theory, and you can disagree with me if you like, my theory is that if you're trying to accomplish dvekus, pure emotion, the words detract from the emotion. Pure emotion is the melody of the song. The melody and the tune are what are emotional about the singing, and those are where you experience dvekus. The words are limiting. The words are an intellectual aspect. They're not emotional. They usually will not enhance the dvekus, but will detract from the dvekus. On the other hand, if your purpose is shlemus, and the nigun or the song is a way to drive home a lesson, which you're trying to absorb into yourself in a more powerful way because it's being done through a song and not just by dry words, then you'll use the music. But of course, the primary part of the music then becomes the words which you're saying, not the melody, although that's a tool to inculcate within yourself the words. But the words are the primary part of what you're trying to accomplish. So again, Chassidic nigun, mostly nigun. Misnagdic song, mostly words. Are there exceptions? Yes, there are exceptions. But by and large, I think that that's the case. Let's continue on. We're up to page 7. Eventually, Rabbi Yisrael moves to Mezhebush, where he spent the rest of his life. And many great Rabbonim, who were great Rabbonim before they came, and then became Chassidim under Rabbi Yisrael Ba'al Shem Tov, came to study with the Ba'al Shem Tov in Mezhebush. These students later on became the leaders of Chassidus and even of Jews in general throughout Europe. Again, the simpler folk were still the people who had the Ba'al Shem Tov's focus was on uplifting even more than the Rabbonim. And then there's a fascinating letter which we have from the Ba'al Shem Tov, in which the Ba'al Shem Tov describes to his brother-in-law, Rabbi Gershon Kittiver, what he had there in Rosh Hashanah 1746. Rosh Hashanah 1746, the Ba'al Shem Tov had what we call an aliyas neshama. His neshama went up to Shemayim. Now you should know when a Mekubal, the Kabbalist's neshama goes up to Shemayim, the body stays right here, and it's a meditative trance. And in this trance, the Mekubal has a vision. And the vision is a vision of what goes on in the higher realms. And the higher realms are not necessarily ones in which he encounters HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or one of the higher angels, because there are many levels of Ruach HaKodesh. And one level of Ruach HaKodesh is to go through the various realms of Shamayim on a lower level than actually, so to speak, speaking with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And these are called going through Hecholos. Hecholos are chambers. A Hechal today is kind of like a translation of the sanctuary, but there means the chamber, and he came to the chamber of Mashiach. And the Ba'al Shem Tov said to Mashiach, and this happens in one of the Lubavitcher songs, which has words, L'emosai ka'asimar. When will the master come? And the Mashiach said, K'sheyafutzu ma'inasecha chutza. When your well springs, the teaching Chassidism will burst forth to the farthest extremes. Now, that's the end of the song. Emosai ka'asimar. L'emosai ka'asimar. L'k'sheyafutzu ma'inasecha chutza. Etc., etc. So that's the song. But it actually, in the original letter, there is an end to that sentence, which is V'yedu kulam liyached yichudim kamocha, and everybody in the world will know how to unify heaven and earth, just like you. So the first part of the sentence, which is the more quoted one, is somewhat optimistic. As long as Chassidus spreads, we're in good shape, and Mashiach's coming. The second part of the sentence is somewhat pessimistic, because it means that everybody's got to have that holiness of the Ba'al Shem Tov, at least to a degree, in order that Mashiach should be able to come. Yichudim are sometimes unifications. Yud, Ches, Vav, Daled, Yud, Mem. Yichudim are either, sometimes they refer to connecting Shamayim v'Aretz in terms of just thinking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. At the same time, it goes about with daily activities, but more often are a name given to intense Kabbalistic thoughts and prayers, which use the names of Hashem and other holy words to connect this world and the higher worlds, the Olam HaTachton, the lower world, with the Olam HaElyon, the higher world. So I want to point out that we're going to talk about later on, not today, the Misnagdus, the opposition to Ba'al Shem Tov. Now the Ba'al Shem Tov wrote this letter. We have this letter. In this letter he says he went up to Shemaim, so we're left with a binary choice. Either the Ba'al Shem Tov was a very holy man, or Chas v'Shalom a fraud, because he claimed to go up to Shemaim. So if he was if we believe him, he was very holy. If we don't believe him, he's a fraud. I believe that we should believe him. I believe that he went up to Shemaim. The fact that he went up to Shemaim and had a conversation with Mashiach doesn't mean that everybody should be a chassid. No, on the contrary. If we accept the last part of the sentence, that everybody should know to make yichudim like the Ba'al Shem Tov, that implies that not Chassidus itself, but the connection of being able to have that knowledge, that intense knowledge of knowing how to connect Shemaim v'Aretz is what's going to bring Mashiach. But again, my personal perspective, and I think the general perspective of Klal Yisrael today, is that the Ba'al Shem Tov was authentic, and he did go up to have this Aliyah's Neshama, and was able to experience things which went on in Shemaim. The Vilna Gaon was too. He was the main opponent to Chassidus. He also went up to Shemaim. So we have, on both sides, people going up to Shemaim, and obviously HaKadosh Baruch Hu and his heavenly host gave haskama to both sides of this machlokas, approved of both sides. The next line, it says that because of his popularity, the Ba'al Shem Tov's teaching was met with strong opposition, the Misnagdic, from much of the traditional Talmudist movement. The opponents of Chassidim were driven by the desire to retain their elite positions. That's not fair. Okay, that is a Chabad Chassidic perspective. The Vilna Gaon was certainly not driven by his desire to retain his position. He didn't even have a position. He had no official rabbinical position. He was the leader of the Misnagdic movement. That's not a fair statement. Unless you're talking about Misnagdim who were dishonest. But we assume that the great Rabbanim of the non-Chassidic movement who opposed it were also l'shem shamayim, just as much as the Chassidim were. And by their suspicion that the Kabbalistic undertones of Ba'al Shem Tov's teachings belied his true intentions to promote himself as Shabtai Tzvi, remember the connection, who also taught Kabbalah, had done not a century earlier. They're growing this now. This is not fair. The following statement: they're growing this state for the glorification of the ignorant, and his unconventional claim that godliness permeates even the most mundane matters led them to reject this entire doctrine. That second part of the statement I want to come back to tomorrow, because that's an extremely point. It's the extremely point. The first part of the statement is not necessarily true. We don't know that they were against giving chizuk to simple people. We do know that they were against the distraction from achieving shleimus for each person on whatever level they are, and certainly this second thing about godliness permeating the most mundane matters, that's important. We're going to come back to that in B'al Shem tomorrow to discuss that.